Talking media, threat to academia. Slacking, you defeated, brother. Track, I hack and eat it up. I'm heating up. Hot as my mama's stove on a Sunday. Except I'm...
Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. Let us discuss NXT Halloween Havoc from October 26th, 2021. A very, very fun show. Not everything was perfect, of course. Quite a bit of botches on this show, for sure. But it was all around a good show, and I agreed with all the decisions made. So, let's talk about it. Start the show with a ladder match. Stairway to Hell ladder match. Io Shirai and Tony Stark versus Toxic Attraction, which consists of Gigi Dolan and JC Jane versus Persia Pirotta and Indy Hartwell. So this match was fun. It was very fast paced. They decided to do it commercial free, which is I would have preferred the main event commercial free, but you know, you win some, you lose some. But this match it's kind of sloppy. You know, there were some things in this match that could have been done a little bit better if they'd have had some, you know, better training. But you know, this is NXT, so you know, some of the people in the match were underdeveloped. Let's put it like that. Toxic Attraction win the match. You know, Io Shirai looked great as usual. Zoe Stark looked pretty good too. She botched her flippy. I think it was a Phoenix Splash, wasn't it? The very same move Kota Ibushi just broke his wrist on, or was it his elbow, or whatever it is. She just tried it in a match and mostly landed on her feet because she was trying not to squash Persia Pirotta on that ladder. Ended up basically landing on her feet. Good thing she didn't break her ankles. Io Shirai took an ugly bump over the top rope. That one made me cringe. I was like, oof, because she barely moved the ladder. She wasn't really all that big, so she barely moved the ladder. But Toxic Attraction winning was a good idea. Great idea, actually. JC Jane and Gigi Dolan have been, you know, they've gotten a lot of television time lately. They're the ones that the focus is on right now. Persia Pirotta and Indy Hartwell will do very well as contenders for the titles who can chase them. So that'd be good. We can actually break up this makeshift team of Io Shirai and Zoe Stark. We can do other things with them. Or they could just come back, you know, and actually get pinned for the tag team titles, which would actually be okay too. But so you really don't lose that much of anything with Toxic Attraction winning. You just move the belts. So now these other two teams can chase. And that's, of course, you know, assuming there's going to be a chase when it comes to Io Shirai and Zoe Stark, which it doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, because the third member of Toxic Attraction, being Mandy Rose, is going to need opponents as well. So since we're on the subject of Toxic Attraction, let's talk about the NXT Women's Title Spin the Wheel, Make the Deal. It was a Chucky's Choice trick or street fight where Mandy Rose defeated Raquel Gonzalez. And I think this is definitely the best match Mandy Rose has ever had, for sure. And she's had some not really good matches up to this point, but she's seemingly coming into her own. The costumes, because Mandy Rose's costume, man, oh man. Costume was nice, dog. It was real, real nice. She's all bronzed and wearing an extra layer of tan. Lord, gee. Dr. Umar, I'm sorry, bro. The white women, goddammit. Anyway, you have Raquel spear Mandy through a table. Then the hooded wrestler who was complaining in the vignettes leading up to this point smashed Raquel in the back with a shovel. Ended up being Dakota Kai, which once she hit, you know, Raquel with a shovel, you should have known it was Dakota Kai. Mandy Rose hits the pump knee, gets the pin, and now Toxic Attraction has all of the titles, and that is the right decision to make. You've already been pushing them. They've already been the cover girls for the brand since they formed, you know, since the official formation. They've gotten most of the television time. They are in a position where they still need some work. Well, Gigi and JC definitely need work. Mandy Rose has been on the main roster for quite a while, but she still also is under construction. So they still need some work. Raquel Gonzalez doesn't really need to be in NXT anymore. I know that a lot of people are kind of sour on her. There is no, and I have a conspiracy theory. People all the MSK conspiracy theories. There's a huge conspiracy theory against Raquel Gonzalez. Okay. Because I don't see any reason why anybody dislikes her. She's awesome. She's very good at what she does. She's not out there to have 4-star, 5-star matches. She's a big Latina. She's going to use her power. And I think in a few years, people are going to appreciate her a lot more. But for right now, they got the head up their ass because it's NXT and she's not an indie darling. But then again, Mandy Rose isn't either. And I know there's a lot of people who aren't thrilled about the Mandy Rose being the champion because they're going to be like, oh, you went from Io Shirai and you had Sasha Banks and Io Shirai. That was your NXT championship match. What was it? It was at Great American Bash, wasn't it? And now your NXT Women's Championship is Raquel Gonzalez and Mandy Rose. They both suck. It's like, well, okay, maybe. But ultimately, I think this is, I wouldn't say it's an upgrade, but I would say it's more within the wheelhouse of what NXT should be. NXT shouldn't be, where you've already been in the business 15 years. And, even though Mandy Rose has been around for a while, you don't just go there to coast, and hold the title and carry the brand and all that kind of stuff. It's supposed to be for building young talent or building new talent. And Mandy Rose, at the very least, can do that. Even if the title run isn't for her, but for whoever beats her, it's still a good idea. And Raquel Gonzalez, I think, has done everything that she could do in NXT. She's reached the pinnacle. She's beaten everybody she needed to beat, with the exception of Kaylee Ray, who we'll talk about in a minute. So I think she's done enough, and she's gone through Rhea, she's gone through Taya, she's gone through Dakota Kai, she's gone through some Xia Li. She went through some other women. It's time for her to move on. I know they're probably going to do, would they even bother doing one more match between her and Dakota Kai, and they do a, maybe, but I don't see it. I don't see the need for it. I think you just let Raquel go off into the sunset and this be her last dance. Personally, that's how I would do it. I mean, you know what? Nah, I wouldn't do that because you don't want to leave that dangling plot thread there, because Dakota Kai is going to explain why, and even though you know why already. And it's probably going to lead to like one more big match between the two of them, which probably Dakota Kai will win. And then Raquel Gonzalez can go on about her business. But she definitely, there's a pot of gold waiting on Raw or SmackDown for Raquel Gonzalez. And pretty much everybody with a functioning brain knows it. There's endless wealth waiting for her on Raw and SmackDown. Every day she is on NXT is a waste of time. Dakota Kai being back is good. I think she, like Johnny Gargano, she's the Johnny Gargano with a female division. I think maybe Tegan Nox should have stayed in NXT too. So Dakota Kai, heart and soul of NXT women's division, her coming back is not, I wouldn't look at it as a bad thing. I know some people say, oh, she's wasted in NXT. I think she's better there. I think she's, I don't think she's really quite fit for the main roster. I just think that sometimes NXT needs to have valuable veterans that work in that division. And yeah, you could say, well, they got Kaylee Ray, they got Taya, they got a couple of other people. But it never hurts to have another one. You just can't have a division full of them. And I think Dakota Kai being one more, who is, a reliable veteran who's been around for a while, because she used to work in independence before she came to WWE. So she's got a bit of a name. She's got some stock, some equity in the brand that she can, and she's been there, So I think, okay, let her do her. So Toxic Attraction winning all the titles, right thing to do. You need the cover girls to be covered in gold, and since they're gonna be the ones cutting all the long promos and doing all the heavy lifting in terms of character work on the women's side while other women get ready. Okay, cool. They need to be the champions. Right thing to do. So I think everybody's in their appropriate place, with the exception of Io Shirai, where I'm not sure NXT is continuously the place for her. The only issue I got is she's very small. She's very small, you know. And despite the fact that she's a very dynamic performer, she's small and she's ESL. That means English Second Language. So it's not the best idea, you know, to let her linger in NXT, but it might also be the best idea to let her linger in NXT, because what on earth is she going to do on Raw or SmackDown? So I think everybody's in their appropriate place, and there's, you know, nothing more to it. So let's talk about this haunted house business, because this thing, it was funny, but it wasn't as funny as the one last year, and I think it did more to sort of blow up the character of Trick Williams than anything. So they show up to the haunted house, this Trick and Mello. They're in midriff shirts, by the way, meaning their stomach is showing. Carmelo Hayes has the Tupac bandana around his head. They both look ridiculous. It looked like they were wearing bulletproof vests, but it's not bulletproof vests. Like they were wearing like almost G-Unit style clothing. And I'm just looking at this and I'm just in absolute disgust. Like, who dressed these men? Whose idea was this costuming? They got their midriff showing. This is not good. I would rather them be in there shirtless than them be in there with their midriff showing. That's not good. Okay, so they noticed that Loomis's house is bigger than it was before. To which Trick Williams said that he got that Gargano family money. To which they continued that Indy Hartwell ain't a gold digger, but she ain't messing with no broke, you know, the Kanye West thing. Okay. So Trick Williams was scared, told Carmelo to go in the house. He'll drive the getaway car. Carmelo was like, oh, no. You supposed to be about it. You going with me. Which, of course, defeats the entire purpose of Trick Williams even being there. He is there to watch Carmelo Hayes back. So why isn't he, you know, amped up to go in there? And Carmelo Hayes should have been the one that was scared. You know, should have told him to go in there and get his belt. You know, Trick Williams is supposed to be the bodyguard. What's happening? So Gargano and Dexter Lumis are in the house there. Of course, there's zombies all over the place, dead people and shit. It's goofy as hell. Gargano claims to have home aloned the house full of booby traps and all kind of nonsense, and that, you know, the zombie ref helped him out. So Trick Williams, of course, gets scared because there's scary things happening, like dead kids and all kind of other stuff. He then offers to buy Carmelo Hayes a replica championship, and rather than go in there and get the real thing. But Melo was like, absolutely not. I need my belt. We're going to get my belt. So they go into the house. So they go into the house, and there's a picture of this old timey lady. You know, one of those black and white pictures that's from like maybe the late 1800s or something like that. You know, late 19th century picture. And Trick Williams is in there, so I was like, ooh, she fine. I'm like, what? He's just one of them dudes that just think every girl is hot, you know, oversexed. So there's dead people popping up all over the place. You know, they're, you know, giving them directions, and, you know, there's somebody with a katana fan. It's a lot of stuff going on. And then they run into Andre Chase, who was just like randomly in the house, sitting in a chair. Just like randomly, Andre Chase is in the building. And he talked about he took his kids here on a field trip, and now the kids are gone. But then they started saying how the kids are out in the field, and the kids are dead out in the field. I'm like, what is going on here? And so Andre Chase starts to lead them through the house. He sees Dexter Lumis in the mirror. They turn around. Dexter Lumis is gone. So Dexter Lumis apparently is a vampire. And Trick Williams gets scared of Dexter Lumis and flees. He runs away. This was I can't believe this. I knew it was going to be stupid. So he fled Dexter Lumis. He was lost in the house. Melo finally finds his title after he got punched in the face by Trick Williams for walking up behind him. He finally finds his title. He takes the title. Gargano and Loomis shows up, and they sick the zombies on him. They run from the house screaming and frightened all the way back to the card, but they did retrieve the North American title. It was 100% dumbass. It was it was silly as shit. It was silly. And it wasn't as funny as the one last year. Even though I hated the one last year due to all the zombies and stuff, this one was as bad, but not as I think the cinematography was better last year because they were routinely doing those cinematic matches. So it was a cinematic match that was broken up into several pieces, while in the graphics and everything was so much better. In this situation, because the pandemic is mostly over, despite the fact that people still think it's a thing, they just decided to go with people, and they didn't do too many. They did jump scares a lot, but I wouldn't consider it to be, the kind of jump scares that I think would have actually worked in a comedic way. And also, there was no Home Alone traps. They didn't fall into like buckets of ice water. There wasn't like things that fell from the sky all over them. Like, it would have been nice if they'd come into a room and a bucket of, liquid fell all over them and it was blood or something like that. And then they were freaked out and ran through the house and slipped on some marbles and fell down the stairs or some shit. Like that shit would have been hilarious. I probably would have died. And I think that would have been funnier. And that's what I expected when I heard Johnny Gargano start talking about how he Home Alone the house. I'm thinking, oh, we got booby traps. Like, okay, that ought to be fun. Somebody's going to put down some of those new jitsu spikes to stop ninjas from chasing you. Like, somebody's going to put some of them shits on the floor, some thumbtacks or something like that, and they're going to step on them or fall on them or something like that. That would be great. You open a door and like fire extinguishers go off and all that kind of shit. Like, that could have been funny. That could have been fun. It was mostly silly as hell. So that was all that was. And take it or leave it. I knew I wasn't going to like it from the beginning, so I'm not too surprised that I didn't like it. The Grayson Waller, the runner-up host, which I can't believe that's a thing. He's dressed as a vampire, and he's hosting also the Halloween party. So he does his hype man thing for the show, but he also is hosting the Halloween party, and the Halloween party is just as silly, but a little bit funnier than Mello and Trick in the haunted house. So the Halloween party is absolutely retarded. I'm so sorry, but Jiro doesn't understand Halloween. He doesn't understand why everybody is dressed up, even though he dresses like a cartoon character every single day. He doesn't understand why other people are dressed up. Furthermore, this man is Japanese and does not know what cosplay is. Cosplay? What is that? And then he said, you go to strangers' houses for candy. Why? Why you do that? And then he pulls out of his jacket a sucker, a little sucker that he gives to Kushida, and Kushida puts it in his mouth. I can't. They killing me. They're killing me. These two guys are going to murder me alive, man. What is going on here? Cameron Grimes is dressed like an astronaut because he's going to the moon, remember? And he's trying to pick up chicks with bad pickup lines, and it ain't working. So we got all these people in this place, man. It is everybody who's not booked, and some of the people who are, but mostly everybody who's not is in there. And Cora Jade is dressed up as a little devil, and she's cute in that little outfit. But it get really silly in the next piece too. So in the next segment, the next Halloween party, our boy Tony, he gets invited to be on Lash Legends show next week, even though he did bad things to that producer, which I guess it worked out for him. Cameron Grimes is still having a ball, even though he got shot down by the ladies. Duke Hudson is not wearing a shirt. He's dressed like the skipper from no, actually, it's Hugh Hefner, because I believe that there is a picture of Hugh Hefner in a smoker's jacket wearing a captain's hat. So I think he's dressed like Hugh Hefner. Him and Cameron Grimes agreed to play poker next week in Duke's poker room. That ought to be fun. I'll look forward to that. Hopefully this ends up with Cameron Grimes being poor. And Robert Stone is dressed like Elvis because every Halloween there's always somebody dressing like Elvis. It never fails. This is like there's always devils, there's always like skeletons, and there's always Elvis at Halloween. Always Elvis. So Robert Stone decides to pick a fight with Zion Quinn, the the not related to the Usos Samoan. At least I don't think he is. And he ends up getting slammed through a table in the middle of a Halloween party, and people cheered. People cheered that he got slammed through a table at the Halloween party. I'm like, what in the hell? And it makes perfect sense that he would get slammed through the table at the Halloween party. It makes perfect sense. Now, the Halloween party ended up being used as lumberjacks in the NXT Tag Team Championship match. As MSK wrestled Imperium, they did the spin the wheel, make the deal. There was a little fan. His name was Alex. He spun the wheel and it landed on a lumberjack or lantern match. So all the lumberjacks from the Halloween party, which included Kushida and Jiro, who are now dressed in wrestling gear for some reason. They are wearing singlets with head protectors, with ear protectors. And I'm just looking at like these guys have been friends for 2 weeks and they're already twin brothers. I cannot stand these two, and yet they're so funny. I can't stand it. They keep doing gross shit, but it's so funny. They're so silly. And so MSK, everybody's caping for MSK now. You know, there's like this entire rallying cry, you know, around, how could you hate MSK? They're so good. They're so fun. Don't everybody like MSK? And it's all over commentary. How could you dislike MSK? I know there's haters out there. It's like, what are you talking about? You know, of course they did this because, you know, John Cena was controversial and so was Roman Reigns. It's like the most controversial WWE champion of all time, John Cena, because he got the split crowd reaction. They did the same thing with Roman Reigns. Now they're doing it for MSK. The odd thing is that there's a lot of people online actually caping for MSK. Look, it's okay to like MSK if you like him. I just don't see why you like him. Because it just reminds me of a different version of the Young Bucks. And this match proves it. They just did all kind of flippity-doo shit all over the top rope. There was people everywhere all the time. I could not keep track of nothing. One dude did a diamond cutter off the top rope onto a stack of people that was just standing there waiting for him to do a diamond cutter off the top rope. Look, I'm a big fan of Imperium. I've been a fan of Imperium for quite a while now, so them winning was great for me. I thought it was excellent. It was a good idea. It was long overdue. MSK losing, hopefully it makes them better characters. You know, sometimes they've been champions long enough. I think they won the titles in February, didn't they? They won the titles like February or March. Like, that's long enough, B. So, you know, the propaganda campaign to get everybody to like MSK, it's not gonna work on me, I can tell you that. Until they get a personality and a character and stop being stale flippity doodads, I'm not interested. You know, if they were able to actually develop personalities, I may actually care. But I can't care about these guys. I did find it very odd though that as soon as Imperium stopped speaking English, all of a sudden they're the baby faces. You know, like they're cutting, like Bartel was cutting a full promo in German, and everybody's like, yeah. I'm like, what? No what chance? Like that's begging you for a what chant. I know they put the captions on the screen. They did it on purpose. But this was begging a what chant. They've been trying to get you to wet these guys, and they're speaking German. I don't think Eichner is German. I think he's Italian. Last I checked, maybe he's both. Maybe he speaks both languages. But the match was okay. It was a solid match, but it was just doing too much. You know, It was just guys flying all over the place. Every time you turn around, one of these guys, usually a member of MSK, is jumping into the crowd for whatever reason. They did a diving Canadian destroyer. I was just kind of like, oh, okay, man, okay, brother. Whatever you say, brother. But what kept me interested in the match was, of course, how good Imperium is as a team. and how I just like these guys, man. Go if you watch this match, and the moment I talk about Eichner's lariat, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know, like he laid one in that was so good. Like that, it was something simple as a clothesline, a lariat. You know, and he laid that joint in. He made the right sound. The guy sold it right. I think it was Wesley he hit. He sold it appropriately. It turned out excellent. Doesn't take too much. They almost destroyed Eichner's hamstrings by, trying to get him to squat both MSK members, and it looked like it wasn't going to happen. It did not look like it was going to go the way that they wanted it to, and I kept telling them to abandon ship. You got to be able to, you got to be able to improvise. This spot ain't gonna work. You got to improvise. But he ended up getting it, even though all he wanted to do was, squat, pick him up, and do what's the forward roll thing? I think it's called the steamroller. But MSK takes the fall after the Imperium Bomb, which is the power bomb, flying uppercut combination. Again, MSK, not my cup of tea, not my cup of coffee, but they exist, and I respect their right to exist. But Imperium is my team. I've been down with them. I've been hoping that they got something for a while now. Now hopefully we can get something for the Grizzly Young veterans, because they deserve something too. We cannot forget our boy Joe Gacy, who came out to be a wet blanket on Halloween. As Grayson Waller is telling us about how all the NXT ladies is out there in their skivvies, he's a little too excited. And then here comes wet blanket Joe Gacy to remind us that Halloween is not inclusive, and that Halloween just forces us to sexualize all people. And that's not what he wants to do. He wants to be inclusive. So he wants to remind us that violence isn't the answer. Of course, he gets drop kicked in the face immediately after that by this Malik Blade dude who has more matches on NXT than Andrade has in AEW. They have the match. Malik Blade was about to get his head torn off by Harland, who was talked down by Joe Gacy, who told him, look, yeah, it's all right. You don't got to do this. You don't have to do this. Gacy wins with the springboard lariat, and then he goes out there to counsel his young snowflake and look lovingly into his eyes and tell him, Harland, you can trust me. You can trust me, Harland. We can do this together. And Harland is listening to him. And that's when I realized how big that Boudreaux kid is. That's a big kid. Because Gacy is not that small. I think he's like, maybe he's like a solid 6 feet. And Boudreaux is bigger than him, much bigger than him. So, he's got something going there just based off size. And he's doing a good job with this character too, being like this stone-faced, almost as if he's medicated. Like, I don't know what's wrong with this guy, but it's great. I love Gacy. I love the theme song. Joe Gacy's theme song is really good. It fits the character perfectly. It's creepy, but it's almost some people have said like it's like Nirvana, and I figured that's why I liked it so much, because I do like Nirvana. So I was like, okay, I can see that. I want to sit down and listen to it again, but I don't know if it's up on the WWE music thing yet. But just listening to it from what I've heard, I really enjoyed that song. I think it's dope. Of course, knowing you go to Raw or SmackDown, they're going to change it to something generic drum beat or some silly shit like that. But we're continuing to slowly build Gacy's cult. And people are starting to now come around to Joe Gacy's character, because I think they've nullified a lot of the more upsetting portions of it. So now that people can just enjoy it as a character and not have to worry about whether it reflects their personal politics or not, which is exactly what they did to Jack Swagger. They ended up cutting the balls off the character, which is, WWE at its finest, because, it's a publicly traded company, not going to do too much. So Kaylee Ray is back, even though I didn't know she was really gone. I forgot she was even in NXT. And she says that she was the longest reigning champion in NXT and WWE history. And what did that get me? Nothing. No respect. No admiration. She starts hitting stuff with bats. She's paler than ever, by the way. She's hitting stuff with bats. She's throwing plates. She's graffitiing her name on the wall. And now she's talking about it's time to rage. So now they're doing something that NXT UK didn't bother to do. And that is force Kaylee Ray to be a character. So she was in NXT UK all that time. She had no character whatsoever. And she was really good. Because all they care about in NXT UK is the mechanics. If you don't, you can walk around NXT UK forever without a character. They don't care. All they have is it's full of mechanics. You go over there, you learn your wrist locks and your grapples, and then you come over to the United States and they force you to get a character. They force you to cut promos more, and they force you to do character work. I would be okay if that was the structure of NXT. Like if you was to bring people into Performance Center and they don't really know how to work, so you send them to NXT UK, and then with Mako Satomura is over there, and there's some other people over there for them to work with. You force them to learn the grapples over there because you don't need a character. So you can go over there, get your grapples on. After a couple of weeks, months, years, maybe a year or two, you get sent back to the United States where you have to be on NXT TV, and they force you to learn character, promo, and the rest of that shit. It should be like a 2-year process, one of which you live in Europe and work the European independence. All these people who WWE partner with, like ICW and Progress and WXW, get your talent booked on all those shows. I don't see why you wouldn't do that. It seemed like a smarter process than to keep them in Performance Center for months and months and months. You have these relationships, you have this stuff. It shouldn't cost you too much. Maybe you don't want to pay for their room and board when they're overseas, but how much that shit really costs? I guess if it's a whole bunch of people, like it's like 15, 20 people. But, create a dojo system the way New Japan does. I think that'd be smarter. But Kaylee Ray's finally doing something that resembles a character, and she's going to be a rage monster. And her hair is especially red now. I'm okay with it. I fear she's going to end up like Grizzly Young Veterans, though. Because now that Mandy Rose is the new champion, the likelihood of Kaylee Ray winning the title is diminishing. Not because she can't beat Mandy Rose, but because Mandy Rose as a new champion is also a heel. So Kaylee Ray can't be the top heel if Mandy Rose is the top heel. There can only be one. That means that somebody's going to have to be a stepping stone. And that someone... And then, of course, you have the same thing with Dakota Kai. So, what are we going to do? That's a good question. But there are still a ton of women in NXT who aren't being really used. Booker T's students, Zayna Ramirez, she wrestled at AQA. I haven't seen her in months. I don't wonder if she's hurt or if they did, trying to come up with a character for her, because she was wearing, the property of WWE shirt last time I saw her. So maybe they're trying to build a character around her or something like that. So they're taking their time. I don't think, outside of Ember Moon, they usually take good care of these Booker T students. So we'll see where she lands. All right, so the next thing, Diamond Mine does an open challenge to which Bivens says that you can get embarrassed and get beat up by Ivy Nile. You can get your wig split by the Creed brothers, or you can get choked out by Roderick Strong. And that in a very original pick your poison situation, they just stand in the ring and somebody's going to come out and challenge one of them. And they can challenge whoever they want. And I thought, this was very interesting. This is an invitational, So in a usual pick your poison situation, somebody would pick somebody else's opponent. In this situation, somebody gets to pick their own opponent. So Odyssey Jones, big jolly ass, comes out there and picks Roderick Strong. And I was just kind of like, are you serious, B? I literally thought he was going to fight the Creed brothers, together. That's what I thought he was going to do. I thought he was going to take the challenge and try to fight the Creed brothers by himself. But he picked Roderick Strong, literally the smallest motherfucker in the entire ring. Like, I think Ivy Nile she definitely well, she is smaller than he is. She's shorter. But I was like, okay, I guess all right. But Roddy shouldn't be losing and Odyssey shouldn't be losing. So how are we going to end this? This is qualification bait. And I was close. Diamond Mine distracted Odyssey Jones. They kept getting in the way. Then he hit a big knee strike to the chin that melted him. And Odyssey Jones loses to the Cruiserweight champion, Roderick Strong. And you know what? It's not that big of a deal. I wouldn't have done it, but Roderick Strong has such goodwill and such equity with the locker room and equity with the audience that I don't think anybody sees this as being a negative. You know, I wouldn't have done it personally, but I don't think anybody sees it as a negative. It's like losing to Tommaso Ciampa, you know. It's like losing to, Samoa Joe or somebody like that. I just don't see, losing to Roderick Strong as being a thing that is telling people that you don't deserve it or you're not in the running anymore. I just think that it's a thing that happens to guys, man. And it's unfortunate. All right, so what was the next thing? I'm looking at my notes and I've connected things together. So, all right, so I think okay, Grayson Waller and LA Knight, because this is what we get. Solo Sikoa. So Grayson Waller is still doing the hosting duties even after Joe Gacy came out there and told him that Halloween is not inclusive. He didn't care. He continued to do the thing. And then LA Knight comes out, and LA Knight is also dressed as a vampire. So Grayson Waller stole his whole deal. So LA Knight is upset, and he told Grayson Waller to kick rocks. Grayson Waller said, "Look, it ain't my fault you had car problems." And then LA Knight was like, "How do you know I had car problems?" So as they are bickering, Solo Sikoa comes to the ring, and LA Knight shoves Grayson Waller into Solo Sikoa, who gets hit. He thrusts him in the throat and threw him over his head onto the floor. And the crowd are chanting, ooh, so, for obvious reasons. Because he looks just like Jay. So obvious reasons. They're chanting for the Usos. And now he's got this Tito Ortiz fight man gimmick. And I'm just kind of like, we all got to start somewhere, dog. His physique even looks like the early days of the Usos. It's just, he looks, there's no getting around it. See, I understand. I stumbled across an article that Charlotte, when she did, I forget where, but she was talking to some magazine, and she was talking about why her name is Charlotte and not Ashley. And she says that the creative idea, and I think this is the creative idea behind it all, and it's pretty much what you would guess, that they don't want people to know that you're the son or daughter of somebody, just in case you don't make it, so you don't damage that brand. So they were saying basically that even though her dad was from Minnesota, they would often say that, he was from Charlotte, North Carolina. So they named her after the city, of course, right? And they said, well, we're just going to do that just in case she quits or just in case she doesn't show up. I think they pretty much got the Richie Steamboat situation where that thing happened and everybody kept asking, what happened to Richie Steamboat? I remember I was still asking that 2 years after he retired, like, what happened to Richie Steamboat? But they basically try to avoid embarrassing the family names. So they don't want people to know. That's what you got to have your Brian Breaker stage. You go through these silly names. Everybody knows who you are. And sometimes they even tell people, like they did with Curtis Axel. They told people that he was Mr. Perfect's son. And then continued to call him Curtis Axel. Michael McGillicuddy. For fuck's sake. Oh, that was so bad. That remains to be the worst one yet. Brian Breaker is not good. But Michael McGillicuddy, oh, that's awful. McGillicuddy is nothing you ever want to hear on a wrestling show. But that's essentially what's going on with Solo Sikoa. everybody knows he's the Usos' brother, cousin to Roman Reigns, but they're not going to name him whatever his real name is, Uso, or something like that. Not yet. Maybe over time he'll grow into learning or getting his Uso name, or whatever his real name is. I think his name it's not Jonathan, because one of the Usos is Jonathan. Jay is Jonathan, right? So, is it Jonathan and Joshua? Isn't that the Usos' names? I don't know. Shit. In any event, whatever his name is, we Jeremy or some shit. I don't know, but I guess we'll get there when in time, once he gets his look together and he goes through NXT and everything. We'll get that together. But he's got a decent look to him. He's obviously still under construction, and it's not too bad. He didn't look awful here, but I was still just kind of confused, like, why is he Tito Ortiz? I'm just trying to figure that part out. I'm trying to figure out why he's Tito Ortiz, not whether he's going to be an Uso or not. So speaking of legacy, Braun Breaker versus Tommaso Ciampa. So I enjoyed the fuck out of this match, and there was blood in this match. But this match was, what made me really enjoy it was that it was billed as the last stand of the black and gold brand. And that, once Ciampa loses, the black and gold era of NXT is officially over. And if you watch the show, you see that's essentially the case. All the champions from the black and gold era that were still around lost their titles. Io Shirai lost her title. Raquel Gonzalez lost her title. And, Tommaso Ciampa was the last one. MSK, they won the tag team titles during the black and gold era. They lost their titles. The last one left is, Roderick Strong, right? Roderick Strong won the Cruiserweight title in the dying days of the black and gold era. So I think he might be the last one left. Him and Tommaso Ciampa might be the last two left. The last two remnants of the black and gold era are the workhorse guys. And they were basically saying, like, okay, that era is gone when Tommaso Ciampa loses. And I think that would have been a great catalyst for a future storyline. I am obsessed with them doing a New Blood Millionaires Club style storyline, or an old school, new school ECW style storyline with NXT. I am just obsessed with, like, Samoa Joe and Tommaso Ciampa and a couple of other people who aren't doing anything on the main roster. For them to make returns to NXT in order to say the black and gold brand was better and this new fuddy-duddy colorful shit is garbage and all you kids suck because you've never done anything but hide in the performance center for months and months. And then all the young kids could be like, all you guys who spent all your time on the independents, you drive up all the money, you tried to soak up all the fame, you took up all the TV time, you prevented everybody else from growing, you underdeveloped a lot of us, now we're getting our time, fuck you. And that could be like this huge, big storyline, especially since Survivor Series is coming up. Doing a NXT Civil War storyline could be so much fun, especially since it's still something that fans are into. Because even though it's been NXT 2.0 for several weeks now, there's still a lot of people holding on to the black and gold era of NXT. And I think that doing a Civil War storyline would ingratiate the new era to them. Because you can even do things like put it on the line. Like, they have to get rid of their logo. Like flags, they have to get rid of the multicolored flag and all that kind of stuff. If the black and gold team wins, everything has to go back to the way it was. It has to go back to the black and gold era, and that even includes the old logo and everything. And so occasionally you will have like a black and gold banner if they can throw over the new banners and all that kind of stuff. And it will be super fun, and there's plenty of guys on the WWE roster that aren't doing anything, especially for Survivor Series, that you can build that storyline around. But they would never do that before. So, and plus, I think a lot of the major players are already gone. Seth Rollins, for starters, is too big for that storyline. So is Big E. and so is Jinder Mahal. Then you have Adam Cole and Bobby Fish. They're not even there anymore. So there's guys like that aren't even there anymore. And then there's a lot of guys who are, you got Ciampa, you got Joe, you got Roderick Strong. You could use Robert Roode. He's still there. You could use Ricochet. He's still there. You could use Keith Lee. He's still there. Karrion Kross is still there. You have a couple of other people who are still around. But that's what I'm thinking when I think of the end of the black and gold era is, Civil War. But this is good too, because this is Civil War on a smaller scale. And Tommaso Ciampa wins over Braun Breaker in a match that a lot of people were really high on. I think a lot of people enjoyed it, rightfully so. It was a really good match. I think it was definitely one of Braun Breaker's breakout moments in this match. They did this little mini storyline with him and Chucky that, I wasn't a fervent watcher of WCW, so I didn't know that Chucky had did segments with Rick Steiner. I didn't know that. So some wrestling nerd who works in NXT remembered that Rick Steiner did a segment with Chucky and decided to integrate that into this storyline into it a little bit. While Chucky says that hopefully, you being a loser isn't genetic, So I thought that was pretty nice. It's a nice little Easter egg for all the 40-year-olds watching this show. Ciampa comes out dressed like Kratos from the God of War, which is of course badass. The crowd is barking for Braun Breaker, which threw me for a loop. Cause I'm like, okay, we get it. We know who he is. Braun Breaker slips off the second rope and face plants right into the middle of right in the ring. And I instantly was like, oh God, it looked like he might have hurt his wrist or something like that. And I was watching this, and to my great surprise, what does Tommaso Ciampa do? He tries to pin him. He's like, oh, he fucked up. Instead of, standing around looking confused, he tries to pin him, forces him to kick out. But I'm pretty sure that also gives him an opportunity to ask if he's okay. As he's covering, like, you all right? And he kicks out, like, yeah. That's a simple situation as opposed to guys just watching like, okay, like, is it over? Is it over yet? But I don't think it was that bad. Like, obviously you can't do that in the Eddie Kingston situation. You can't grab the guy, even though he ended up doing it anyway. You can't just grab the guy and pin him. So Braun Breaker used his strength advantage, good stuff. Tommaso Ciampa used his wily veteran skills, to escape Braun Breaker. He ended up DDTing him on the floor, which was the momentum change. From there, we get a fairy tale ending. We see that Braun Breaker is bleeding. But, 1-2, he kicked out, and I was instantly like, no way. Now, look, I get we trying to put over Braun Breaker. I get it. But we can't get to the point where we have to hit this kid with a mat truck to pin him. We can't get that far yet. We saved that for when he's the main event of WrestleMania and all that kind of stuff. I think he should have been pinned after the first fairy tale ending, personally. But they continue to get up so he can continue to fight back. So he can get more unresponsive attacks to the head. You keep getting running knee strikes to the head. Second fairy tale ending, pinfall, Ciampa wins. And you know what? Right decision, but I still would have done it a little bit differently. I think I said a couple of weeks ago that they needed to do a Master Roshi on this thing. And that means not just Tommaso Ciampa should win, which, Master Roshi ended up winning in Dragon Ball. He beat the Goku and Krillin in the first tournament to prove that it wasn't that easy to be the strongest fighter in the world. But I would have had Tommaso Ciampa turn heel. I think it was the right time for it, and I think Braun Breaker needed it. And I think that even though, what else is there to do? If NXT 2.0, the entire point of this brand now is to push Braun Breaker, the next step would be to continue this story with Tommaso Ciampa in a way where Ciampa completely cheated in order to win. In this situation, it was inconvenient that he got DDT'd on the concrete. You know, it was a happenstance. I would have had Tommaso Ciampa hit him in the nuts or blast him in the head with the title or something like that. And then, hit the fairy tale ending and pin him. That way the crowd could be like, oh no, what's going on here? And then, Tommaso Ciampa next week and say, rookie, you fell short. You talk about respect. This ain't about respect. It's about being the best. It's about being the champion. It's about being the man. It's about the money. You came here with the wrong mindset. That's why you ain't the champion now. So that's what I would have done. I would have put a lot of heat on this thing. And I think it would have put Brian Breakker over a lot more. Instead of hitting him with a flying comet in order to pin him, if you'd just cheated, cut some corners, use Tommaso Ciampa's intelligence and his expertise and his experience to outwit the young, hungry upstart, would have been so much better. It would have been a much better story. And I think it would have propelled Brian Breakker forward a lot more. And then would have made the chase even better. Because, okay, now Brian Breakker goes to the back of the line. He's got to start over. All right, cool. It's the right decision. But I think that he missed something. Not that he lost anything. But there is an opportunity cost that was there with Brian Breakker that they missed out on. And I think that they should have went ahead and collected that by turning Tommaso Ciampa heel. I think it would have been so much better. And I think you have to bring back Samoa Joe too. And another thing I probably would have done. But you can also do that next week. So I think Samoa Joe needs to come back as well. But again, we can wait on that one. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel, donate to the channel. Thank you guys for your time, and I will talk to you guys later.